Hello, I'm Johnny and Super Gaming Brothers, and welcome to another edition of our Month of Metroid series. Let's not waste any time, let's go right into Metroid 2, Return of Samus for the Game Boy. So the first Metroid ended up selling pretty well, over 1 million copies sold. So needless to say, a sequel had to be made. However, it wouldn't be for the NES, but for the Game Boy, which was the hottest thing at the time. Metroid 2, The Return of Samus was released in 1991 here in the United States, and in 1992 in Japan and Europe. Now believe it or not, Metroid is actually more popular here in the United States than it is in Japan. I couldn't tell you why, but then again it really isn't much of a big deal. Alright, now I just shown you the game going into the Game Boy, but obviously I can't record footage directly off a Game Boy, and putting the camera in front of a monochrome screen just seems idiotic. So we're going to test out something I got just for this game. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the Super Game Boy. It's basically a Game Boy player for the Super Nintendo that was released in 1994. It gives old Game Boy games color! Sometimes it looks like ass, but for a game like Metroid 2 it could look quite nice. Well, for 1994 anyway. So upon popping in the game, again, we are immediately taken to the title screen, complete with an eerie background music. Actually, that's starting to annoy me, so let's just get started. Now, if you thought the original Metroid had an incredibly thin storyline, in this game it's non-existent. Well, that's assuming you only have the cartridge. Unless you have the actual game manual, which I don't, you won't actually know what the plot is. It's not a problem in today's world thanks to the internet, but back then, if you got a used copy of this game with no box or manual, then good luck trying to figure out just what the hell was going on here. After defeating Mother Brain and the Space Pirates, which actually sounds like an intergalactic rock group now, Samus is promised a huge bounty by the Galactic Federation to travel to the Metroid homeworld, planet SR-388, and exterminate every single Metroid on the planet. I'm guessing the planet must be the size of a city block, because traveling through an entire planet to exterminate every single Metroid just seems like something that can't be done in just under 2 hours. But then again, this is Samus we're talking about here, so it's probably nothing more than a morning stroll for her. Upon starting the game, we are again immediately taken to the first screen of the game. This is also the first game to introduce us to Samus' spaceship, something we'll be seeing more of in the future. Unlike the first game, we actually start off a bit more improved this time. First off, Samus' health now begins at 99 points of energy instead of 30, something I'm glad that was improved on. She also already has 30 missiles in her arsenal and the Morph Ball, as well as the Long Beam, so we no longer have to worry about the beam not traveling across the entire screen. Seriously, that was so stupid. Samus herself is also a bit more upgraded this time around. In addition to having a much more detailed look, she can now crouch, which allows you to take down ground enemies easier, and she can finally shoot down. Thank you! No, but wait, she still can't shoot diagonally. Damn it all! Throughout your travels you'll come across red doors, which leads to rooms containing power-ups that can increase Samus' power. Returning from the first game when the Morph Ball bombs, the Ice Beam, the Wave Beam, which is actually a lot more useful this time around, the Various Suit, which now gives Samus her now famous shoulder pads, the High Jump Boots, which allow Samus to jump incredibly high, and of course, the Screw Attack. Screw Attack! Would you cut that? Ugh. Anyway, being a sequel, we also get new power-ups that Samus can use to her advantage. New to the Beamline power-up is the Spazer Beam and the Plasma Beam. In addition to going through walls, the Spazer Beam definitely covers the most area in terms of width. The Plasma Beam, while not as fast as the other beams, is incredibly powerful and my personal favorite. New to your Morph Ball abilities is the Spider Ball. By pressing down a second time while in Morph Ball mode, Samus will gain the ability to stick to just about any kind of surface. Besides using it to crawl ceilings to find hidden goodies, I don't think you'll be using it that much. There's also the new Spring Ball, which allows you to jump while in Morph Ball mode, something I think the first game really could have benefited from. But of course, one of the biggest additions that will become a series staple is the new Space Jump, which almost makes the High Jump Boots and Spider Ball obsolete. The Space Jump allows Samus to continuously jump in the air as long as you rhythmically press the jump button. Your ultimate goal in this game is to destroy every single Metroid on this 8-bit planet. The counter on the bottom right represents the number of Metroids Samus must destroy. Now you're probably thinking, but John, you said Metroids were the nastiest creatures in the last game. If this game is all about destroying these things, then this game must be really hard. Well, not exactly. You see, upon encountering your first Metroid, we see that the Metroids are actually beginning to evolve. No longer jellyfish with fangs, Metroids now come in 4 different flavors: Alpha Metroids, Gamma Metroids, Zeta Metroids, and Omega Metroids. These evolved creatures are no longer afraid of their previous weakness of the Ice Beam, but you no longer have to freeze them anyway to hit them with missiles. So when you see one, just switch to your missiles and blast away. Now Metroid 2 is definitely nowhere near as linear as the first game. Along your travels, you'll come across platforms and other areas you can't reach because they're covered in lava, which on the Super Game Boy looks like mud. Your progression is entirely based on you killing every Metroid in the given area. Upon killing the last Metroid in an area, an earthquake will occur which will lower the level of lava, allowing you to reach the next area and kill the next batch of Metroids. It's because of this lava that you're unable to really do any exploration in the game. While some areas are clearly larger than other areas, your exploration is still rather limited because there's only so much you can do in one area. This was most likely because of the memory limitations of the Game Boy. Some people might prefer it this way, but for me it kinda kills the experience. Throughout areas are little hidden corridors that usually contain expansions to your missiles or energy tanks, which again add more units to Samus's health. Some of them are kinda well hidden, but there's clearly some places where they didn't even try to hide them from you. Again, this is probably because of the memory limitations. The areas themselves are rather small, but because the overall screen ratio is smaller and because Samus is much taller than her NES counterpart, you can't really see much at once. Because of this, it's quite easy to lose yourself in some long corridors, especially areas that branch off in many different directions. It can get frustrating and boring when you felt like you've explored every nook and cranny and yet still can't seem to find that one damn Metroid that stands between you and your progression into the next area. Yes, it's exploration, but it comes off more as frustrating than fun because of your limited view. The Metroids themselves can range from pathetically easy to a bit frustrating. Alpha and Gamma Metroids are nothing to write home about. They really don't put up much of a fight, so killing these can become rather boring. Zeta and Omega Metroids are a little more tricky. Zeta Metroids are incredibly aggressive, so use extra caution when fighting these types. Omega Metroids surprisingly aren't too difficult, they just take a crap ton of missiles to kill. Here's a tip, if you manage to hit them in the back instead of the front, you'll kill them faster. Because trust me, you do not want to run out of missiles in this game. If you do, you'll have to farm for them, and that can be incredibly boring. Now this game actually does have energy and missile refill stations, something I thought the first game really needed, but these things are few and far between. And when dealing with Omega Metroids, you need all the missiles you can get. So alright, there's only one Metroid left. Upon space jumping up this unnecessarily long and wide room, we come across an egg-like contraption that we just can't get to yet. But wait, why did the game oh, son of a bitch! The Metroid counter just jumped from 1 to 9! What in God's name could cause the number to spike up like that? Original Metroids! Yes, the very last bunch of Metroids you need to kill are original ones. And like the original ones, you're gonna need the Ice Beam and 5 missiles to kill each of them. Luckily, the area before this is the Chozo statue that contains the Ice Beam, so you can switch up in case you didn't have it already. So alright, one Metroid left again, and we drop down this room and we come across the Queen Metroid. And how do we begin this fight? By ignoring her completely. Yes, by the time you actually reach her, you'll probably be wiped out from dealing with those last 8 Metroids, and you're gonna need a crap ton of missiles in order to defeat her. As such, you can roll into the secret exit here and escape for the time being, allowing you to refill your energy and missiles. I recommend you do this because you'll need to be at full power when facing her. So after refilling your ammo and energy, we can finally confront the Queen. And she's piss easy. So here's what you do. Upon immediately falling into the area, veer to the left and unload a crap tons of missiles on her face. The Queen Metro would just stand there for a few seconds before actually starting to move. After that, it goes like this. She'll lunge at you twice, step back, and shoot projectiles. That's it. I'm serious, that's all she does. The projectiles are easily avoided by screw attacking into them, and when she lunges at you, just stay where you are and fire your missiles. You'll get hurt, but it's an effective strategy. If you manage to shoot a missile in her mouth when it's open, she'll be stunned, allowing you to pump even more missiles into her mouth. Wow, that sounded incredibly gross. But anyway, after enough damage, the Queen Metro will die and dissolve like many Final Fantasy bosses. And what, no countdown or self-destruct sequence? Huh. How odd. So upon leaving the area, we come across the egg I mentioned earlier, and oh crap, it's hatching. Oh, look at that, it's a baby Metroid, which actually mistakes Samus for her mother. Personally, if the first thing I saw upon birth was this, I'd probably die from shock alone. The rest of the game is just you and your little Metroid buddy navigating through the escape tunnel and back into your ship, where we're taken to the credits with no ending whatsoever. Instead, we get this incredibly awkward looking running animation. And like the original Metroid, if you manage to beat the game fast enough, the ending animation will be of Samus without her power suit, with hair that can somehow flow in space. Now, I can definitely see why this game is often considered the black sheep of the series. Well, first off, I don't like how you're limited to one area at a time because of lava blockage. If there's one thing that made the original pretty fun was the ability to explore where you want it, when you want it, as long as you have the proper power-ups to get you through them. But in this game, even with your upgraded gear, nothing can protect you from the damage the lava does. So non-linearity is definitely gone. Secondly, besides Metroids and the Queen, there's no other types of bosses in this game, which to me is an incredible letdown. You'll start to get bored hunting the same types of Metroids over and over again, and you wish there was more variety in the boss selection. They're not even that much of a challenge. Thirdly, I am not a fan of how beam possession works in this game. Like the original, you can only carry one type of beam with you, so if you found yourself bored with the type of weapon you had, you would have to travel all the way back to the area of the specific beam weapon you wanted and switch there. This problem was also present in the first game, but it really didn't matter to me then because I only really cared for the ice beam. Now, there is a section of the game that conveniently places all the beam power-ups close by, but really, you wish there was a way you can just keep all the beams on you at once. If there's one thing that really bugs me about this game, however, is its audio presentation. This game's soundtrack is incredibly forgettable for two reasons. For one, there's barely any soundtrack at all. There's going to be plenty of times where besides hearing Samus's footsteps, you'll get... Secondly, when there is music playing, the themes themselves are incredibly dull. Now, some people would say it's because of the Game Boy's limitations, and to that I say bullshit. Games like the Castlevania Adventure and the sequel were made for the Game Boy too, and their soundtracks were freaking incredible. I mean, graphically speaking, Metroid 2 definitely trumps the original, but they seriously should have put equal attention into the sound department. Now, people might say that the lack of music in dark, eerie caves could actually enhance the mood, but it's a freaking Game Boy game! The fact that this game was on an 8-bit monochrome screen kills any atmosphere the game could have had. Now, while I think Metroid 2 is the weakest of the Metroid games, as a game itself, especially for the Game Boy, it's great. I mean, if you want a solid action-adventure game that you can pick up and play, then go for it. It can be pretty fun at times. You know what, I didn't give the original game a score because of its age, but if I gave this game a score, then I would be pretty obligated to give the original one as well. So for the original Metroid, I'll give it around a 7 out of 10. I'll give this game a 6.5 out of 10. It definitely takes a few steps forward in terms of progression, but its negatives are too glaring to ignore. So next time we meet, we're going into the Super Nintendo, with a game that not only reclaims Samus's glory, but is also one of my favorite games of all time. It's Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo. Until then, I'm Johnny the Super Gamer Brothers. You guys have a great night. Thank you for watching, and thanks.